Hello and welcome to episode 257 of The Crate and Crowbar. It is the 3rd of October 2018. My name is Chris Thurston and tonight I'm joined by Tom Senior.
Hello.
And Tom Francis.
Hello.
Hello.
Mine is less fruity.
That hello went places. It came back again.
I'm in a very good mood today. I don't even know why. You know, suppose you wake up and you just feel brilliant.
Yeah.
It's been like that all day. It's great.
I've had that because of autumn. I feel that way at this time of year. There's something about summer dying that...
Yeah, the death of joy.
And those fucking leaves,
delicious.
Thank God they're off their bullshit.
No, seriously, I don't I don't know if it's like reverse sad or just enjoying change or something, but like genuinely it's like, yeah, finally. Yeah. I can wear the clothes I actually like.
Yeah.
I can walk places like, and I don't get sweaty.
Yeah, that's my big thing. Like, we had a big kind of heat wave earlier in the year in the UK. And by heat wave, I mean, this is very contextual. Like, it's a heat wave by the UK standards.
Yeah.
And, obviously, like, other countries will rightly make fun of us for this, but I was fantasizing about wearing togas. Just, some loose linen, something just air yourself out.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted.
I had to buy shorts. I hate wearing shorts more than anything.
Same here.
Because they make me look like a wee boy. And yet I had to survive so that my legs so my legs didn't die and fall off.
To live and play games.
Exactly. But no, it's great this time of year. I suddenly feel so much more alive.
Autumn is the best.
I think it's because the winter's coming, that's when you get to go to sleep.
Yeah, we all hibernate on the Great Crowbar. I don't think we really...
Yeah, well, for that 2 weeks we take off, yeah. Good. And the more pressing than winter is the encroaching cowboy apocalypse, which threatens to consume all games media.
Dead Redemption.
Yeah, it's coming, and it will eat all games websites.
It will. And the release schedule entirely. Everything else is gonna not want to be around it. Not because it smells, but because it's too beautiful. I'm
Does look nice.
Softly excited about it, but like, I know I'm going to love it, but there's nothing about it on the outside that makes me understand why. You know what I mean? I'm particularly excited about the online mode, actually. I think that, forming a posse with like some friends just riding across there, it's going to be an enormous, beautiful open world, isn't it? Whatever happens, Rockstar are very good at that. And I probably won't get into the story. Nothing about the story interests me. But the idea of getting together with some friends and doing some train robberies and stuff is like the best thing ever.
In the latest trailer, they're all going on about, they just say the same thing like 19 times, which is, there's lots to do everywhere you go. Everywhere you go, there's lots to do. Wherever you go, there's lots to do there. And all their examples, well, not all their examples, but a lot of their examples are just like, the main character walks forwards and then some people like jump in front of him and do a kind of movie scene with very exaggerated accents. And, every time that happened, I kind of like cringed because they were like, oh, I don't mind watching it now, but like when I'm in game, I'm going to just be pissed off that they're talking to me and I want to...
Looked as though they were trying to, so they were talking about these cutscenes that could sort of happen around you dynamically and you sort of wander into them, it becomes a cutscene then seamlessly goes back out into the world.
Yeah, that could be nice. I like that back out into the world thing. Just pivot 180 and walk straight away.
I like the idea of, the coming out part. But at the same time, isn't this like the worst thing that games do to you? Like, it's the bit where you walk through a door in a first-person shooter.
Is it not
and
a quick time event?
Exactly. Like, is it not just the thing that we've hated about cutscenes forever? That you think you're in control and suddenly, fuck you, we're going to show you a movie now. Like, I don't know, we'll wait and see, I suppose.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah.
Because no one really knows anything. People who've played it seem to think it's nice.
Yeah.
I imagine it is, because Rockstar don't do things by halves.
It'll be nice.
You will be, yeah. I think, I mean, maybe this will move on to, like, I realized this week that I really want to play Assassin's Creed, actually.
Oh, yes.
And, because it just looks really nice and I'm kind of into all of the things it's doing. And I really still want to play Spider-Man, which I haven't started or played.
Spider-Man so much.
And when I got that feeling that like, I want to play Spider-Man, I guiltily made myself go back to Horizon, which I appreciate it's not a PC game, but it's like, at this point, the backlog of open world games is so vast that I actually need a policy change. Like, I need to either make my peace with the fact that, like, the 12 hours of these games that I will happily play is what I'm getting for my money. And the rest of it is just a sort of, like, guilt box. And I think this is not to poo-poo games being long, at all. Like, I don't really get into that. I think there's been quite a few hot takes to that regarding Assassin's Creed this week. It's more to say that, like, I kind of like, I know something about myself, which is that, like, I'm going to get like 12, 15 hours out of any of these games, I think. And so it's about like picking which which 12, 15 hours you want to have, and that can feel weirdly tremendously wasteful when you're paying full price for something that somebody else spent millions and millions rendering to an extent I will never see. And I do wonder, I guess, somewhat about, like, so I think thing one is I need to simply make my peace with one side of this. Either I am squandering someone else's investment in making a horse I will never see, that's over a hill I will never go to. Which I think is the last line from The Great Gatsby. And also simply like the sort of, the sense of guilt I feel that's sort of not engaging fully with entertainment that I've bought before moving on to the next thing. It's difficult. I don't really know how to exist anymore. Thanks to open world games.
I had to think about this when, I got to preview Skyrim for like, I think it was like 4 hours. So it had 4 hours of Skyrim and it's basically the finished game. And so I had to figure out like, this is the last game you want to play under time pressure really. But it's a good amount of time. And I decided like, I'm just going to play this like I would play it, which is to say I'm going to just walk in a random direction and see what happens. I'm not going to try and follow the story. I'm not going to try and like milk it for all of its, narrative content, to write up about. And that worked really well. Like just when you have limited time with something, just do the part that you actually care about and don't feel bad about missing the rest.
I think it's hard to tell when you start an open world game, like to what extent its systems and combat and just the general sort of motor stuff is actually going to be interesting 15 hours in or 50 hours in. And the one thing I'd say about Horizon Zero Dawn in particular is that I really enjoyed its combat until the very, very end, because you're fighting new weird robots all the time. And
do you mean you liked it all the way through or you hated it at the very end?
No, I liked it all the way through.
Right.
I think that it sustained that interest, the mechanical interest. Whereas something like, for example, Skyrim, I don't think does. I love Skyrim so much. I love the atmosphere, but there's not much kind of skill going into the first person combat. Once you've researched some spells, it's just like hold down a mouse button to do them. But I think Horizon Zero Dawn particularly has a lot going on with its enemy design and with the big boss fights and stuff like that. And I'd extend this to stuff like Dragon Age Inquisition with its dragon fights and things like that.
Yeah.
So there are open world games where the mechanics sustain the length of it, but a lot of them don't. And that I would even say that about something like Zelda, which is an amazing game, but I don't think
Zelda's an interesting one because I think the mechanics are phenomenal, but they are almost so good that you need to be like the best player to get the most out of them. It's quite easy to progress in Zelda without like really engaging with the crazy stuff it allows you to do.
Sure.
It's like they made a system where metal items are conduct electricity and are magnetic, and that interacts with physics in interesting ways.
Which is extraordinary.
And if a puzzle requires you to roll a big metal ball somewhere, then it allows the Galaxy Brain version of that, where you take all the metal items out of your inventory and lay them in a line to circumvent the puzzle, and that works. That's incredible. Like that's, game of the decade stuff. But it's like, I'm an idiot and I'm just playing the ball puzzle with the motion sensitives, like motion sensitive controllers, like a big dickhead.
And just circling around things, just hitting them over.
Yeah. It's a game where like watching someone else use those mechanics to doing crazy things makes you feel like a huge idiot that's played it completely wrong, rather than like excited to go and learn that stuff. I think, there's like, that's definitely part of it. I think plot is another big part of it. Like, Dragon Age Inquisition is a good example of an open world game that is not like incredible mechanically, but you want to find out what happens to everybody. And more to the point, you want to just go places and do stuff with people.
Yeah.
Because you walk past a funny statue, the character you like is going to say something funny. And that will make it worth it. Like, that's a very different proposition. And I think that's actually one of the reasons I'm gravitating towards, if I had to pick one of the three, it's like, of the three big open world games of this year, which feel like now that they've all turned out to apparently be good, it's Spider-Man, Odyssey, and Red Dead.
Right.
I think I'm leaning towards Odyssey, partly because of the promise of like everyone seems to like the characters and the plot and stuff, because like that is ultimately the thing I'll probably get the most out of, like dialogue options and having a boat full of mates, rather than like maybe because because I'm so out of faith with Rockstar storytelling, and because I know kind of what's going to happen in a Spider-Man game, I'm excited by it, but like that feels like I will enjoy being Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But I know the parameters of that experience.
Sure, yeah. And it's not going to do anything too risky with it. Spider-Man is awesome because, don't want to go into it too much because it's not a PC game, but it's very, very good at putting you in Spider-Man's jumpsuit. And the thing is, it's not an origin story of Spider-Man again. Spider-Man has been being Spider-Man for, years. Like, he's encountered most of his biggest enemies. And that is like the most refreshing thing you can fucking do with Spider-Man at the moment, because, oh God, we've seen that origin story over and over again. Do we want to see Uncle Ben again? I don't think so.
It's one of the good things that was good about the most recent, like the Tom Holland Spider-Man, like Spider-Man Homecoming and onwards, is like they don't bother with that
Absolutely.
at all. They barely mention Uncle Ben.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that's good. Anyway, that's a great game.
It is good, yeah. You've played a bit of Odyssey, have you not?
I have. I've played 8 hours of it in preview, which I would say is a very, very big preview event. Like, you never get 8 hours of the game normally. And so they were very, very pleased with it and willing to put it in front of the press for such a long time. And, I had a fantastic time with it. I think it's very, very good indeed.
Awesome.
The open world is absolutely beautiful. I think the idea of kind of archipelagos where you're kind of sailing between bits is a great fit for Assassin's Creed, which can kind of become a bit samey, even the new Assassin's Creed. There's stuff I really dislike about it, that is, and it's the same stuff that I really disliked about Origins as well. And that is down to level gating systems, where each zone, you're told to, you need to be a certain level to be in that zone. And if you're like 1 or 2 levels below the enemies, it's so punishing. It's really punishing. You seem to do like half as much damage, maybe less, and take twice as much damage. Like it's really severe. And, in order to actually kind of progress to the level point that you want to be, to keep on doing the main quest is really good. Loads of big decisions to be made. The characters, as Chris alluded to, are brilliant, really fun. You have to do a lot of kind of side missions all the time. The side missions are probably about 50% good. Some of them are really important. You'll meet new characters that are like romance options, or people that you can hire to be on your boat and stuff like that, which feels really worthwhile. And there's some really good kind of interactions. But another one will be like, go fetch some wood. And there's no way on the outset, when you're going into a side quest, to know whether it's going to be an important one that you should do because it's fun, or it is going to be a fetch quest you need to do to rank up your XP bar. So what I ended up doing last night actually was I'm not really like a big microtransactions guy, but there is a microtransaction for Assassin's Creed Odyssey which permanently boosts the XP you gain by 50%.
Oh my God.
For the entire game.
Jesus.
And this is kind of the thing I'm grappling with the most with this game, because that fixes the game for me. That fixes it. Like, all the irritation I feel with the side quests, the kind of grinding to get through stuff, bam. And it costs $10.
Oh.
Costs $10.
And that's all you get with that? It's not like a special edition thing? It's not like...
No, it's just a thing everyone can go into the shop and buy. And that is a fucking slider for the developers, right? That is just a slider for the amount of shit you receive.
Not expensive to make that deal.
But, and the fact that you've paid like 50 quid for a game, and, a lot of people are like, I want to stress that people are loving it without this booster. People are really enjoying it, and, they like doing all the side quests and stuff. But for me, that is the sticking point.
Yeah, especially when we're talking about having limited time to play these games and wanting to see most of it. That's actually very tempting.
Because like, I went through a little roller coaster thing, because when you told me that existed, I was like, I want that.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly, right.
Oh, good. And like, my first thought was literally like, oh, good. And then I thought, oh no. Both in reaction to myself and the thing.
Exactly right. And, I think the difference for me is that I'm happy to pay for stuff, assets, things that people have made. I resent paying for a number moving,
a balance
tweak that is so trivial.
That feels
so trivial.
Brazen.
And imagine if this had, like 5 years ago, this would have been all over the headlines. Like, the media's perception of this, the press is taking a softer stance on this stuff. And I don't want to like go after it because I think it's a really cool game. I think there's loads of stuff that's great about it, but this is an interesting thing to examine.
Yeah. It's a real concern because it takes, one thing it does is take an element of game balance, essentially. Not balance in terms of competitiveness because obviously it's a single player game, but just the balance of the game as an experience, and takes it out of the realm of patch notes. Because people currently have they have skin in the game when it comes to the XP being not good and then being good. You know what I mean? It's like you can't sell a patch that fixes something.
Right.
Like that feels like a Rubicon that no one's gone over. It's like, oh, you want us to fix this bug? Like, not that it's a bug necessarily, but like, it creates really dodgy incentivization just simply in the making of the game.
Yeah.
It's interesting because
I don't like that at all.
I wonder what would happen if it was just a toggle in the options menu.
Exactly.
Because I think there would be downsides to doing it that way. I think there would be people who are like, oh, more XP, sure, I want that. And they click it. And then the people who want the game to be 300 hours long then blow through it in, I don't know, a mere 40 hours.
And
I'm like, what the hell? This is, I was, it will be like, if you do want to do all the side content, leveling that fast is probably a bad thing because you get over-leveled and then the side content is no longer, like, you can still do it, but it kind of feels like a waste of time because you're not really making any progress when you do it.
I think the game might actually level up side content in old areas with you, but I need to test that before that's confirmed.
Why are the levels in there then?
Well, to stop you from going too far ahead. And this is the other thing, is like, they give you this enormous, beautiful world, and all the level gating does is stop you from exploring it until, the game wants you to.
The funny thing is, I actually, in Assassin's Creed Origins, I did, intentionally go through like crazy high level areas, like areas where they don't even tell me what level the people are, they're just question marks. And it was a really cool experience, except that, like, it was a cool experience just to ride on my horse through these weird, like, desolate hills, being terrified of everything. Like, if I see a lion, I'm like, oh shit, ride as fast as you can in the other direction because I'm going to be completely destroyed by that lion. And then coming across a settlement and seeing like all these guards, any one of them could just absolutely murder me. And sneaking around that was really cool. And then like trying to climb into a window and steal something from a chest, hoping it would be something really good, and it wasn't. That was really cool. And then getting the jump on somebody in that situation was really cool, except because the high level, it just doesn't work. Yeah. So like, I was trying to pull him out of a window and you just kind of like bump him against the frame a little bit and he loses like 0.01% of his health and nothing happens. And that's where it shatters for me. Like, if that worked, if I could just assassinate him that way, I'd be on board with all of it. And you'd be like, fine, make them as good as you like in combat, make them as, give them as many HP as you like, but like assassinations ought to kill them.
Yeah, I think they added some options to Origins which lets you actually toggle on that ability to actually make assassinations.
Do you mean Odyssey?
Sorry, I mean Origins.
Oh.
Yeah, so I think they've added a bunch of stuff to Origins, retroactively.
Huh. Well, here's the thing, right? Like, so if they went to Odyssey and said, okay, we actually do want to tune down how punishing it is to be a high-level area, would people who bought the XP boost to get around that different way have a case that like they had devalued the thing that you'd bought?
Right.
Like, yes, this is what I mean when I say that you take something out of the realm of patch notes and you put it in commercial territory.
Yeah.
It just makes things really weird. It's like, can you make the case for like, I paid for this specific thing. I paid for the inconvenience I experienced to be taken from this level to this level. And if you reduce that maximum, inconvenience level, then you have devalued. You've shortened the distance that my $10 has taken me, and therefore I want it back, or it will take you to court, Eve. Like, yeah.
This thing of minimizing inconvenience has been part of leveling systems forever. So, for example, in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, in all Assassin's Creed games, there tends to be like a scan button that you can tap and it highlights stuff in the area. That's like an ability you need to unlock with one skill point, rather than just being an innate thing that your character can do. And, so this stuff, like kind of redundancy stuff, has been built into progression systems forever. This idea that, okay, so you start like a blank slate and you have to, pare back the inconvenience ability point at a time. But imagine that, but you pay money to remove the inconvenience. And that's kind of what the XP booster does, is it says, we've created a deliberately irritating environment and now you need to pay to circumvent it. But I am speaking as someone who, if I was like 17 and this is the one game I bought for the Christmas period, I would explore everything and do everything in Assassin's Creed, and that leveling curve would work for me. But the dilemma comes when, should I have to pay?
Yeah. It's like paying for easy mode.
Right? Should I have to pay for that? That doesn't seem cool.
Like if they had charged for the story mode in Mass Effect 3. When they introduced that mode, it makes the combat trivial, just so you can see the cutscenes and make the decisions, basically, like, which is an acknowledgement that that's what some people want to do. If they charged for that, it would have felt like a tax on a certain type of player.
Sure.
I think this feels like a tax on a certain type of player as well. Yeah. And ironically, it's like, it's a tax on players with jobs.
Exactly.
So those are the people who could afford it. Yeah. Like, tax the rich, but like or tax the time poor. But that doesn't feel great when it's so for example, I think, there's a bunch of free-to-play MMOs that do stuff like this. Like, The Old Republic is one of them, in its free-to-play existence, where it's like, if you're willing to pay so it's like, it's a bit of a grind, but if you're willing to pay the subscription fee, then the grind speeds up dramatically, particularly if you're just interested in seeing the storylines, some of which are very good. And so that for me, I kind of accept, because A, it's a free-to-play game. So it's like, if you're willing to pay, you get a slightly slicker experience, and that's, I think I can make my peace with that. but this is at the expensive end of AAA, right? Like, there's a reason I'm trying to pick a open world game to play this winter, and it's not just because they're all long. It's because they're all 50 quid games, right? Like, that's not trivial. And so you maybe pick one because you're investing in a bigger way than you would be normally.
Yeah.
So to be like, oh, for just another 7 quid, I can also make it fit my life. I can, by paying more, I can get less out of this. Like that, oh God, that's short-circuitingly kind of confounding as a thing to hang over and otherwise apparently very good game.
Isn't it?
I'm sure there will be a backlash against it on Steam at least. Like there'll be a shitload of negative reviews. To be honest, I just assume there'll be a shitload of negative reviews on any main Assassin's Creed game, most Ubisoft games, and usually it's just like, what is it this time? Is it something somebody said on Twitter, or is it a legit thing? And this time it might be the legit thing.
Yeah.
I want to be positive for a minute. It is a cool game. I'm really enjoying it. It's fucking beautiful. Like, it's so...
I've loved everything I've seen of it. That's the thing. That's what makes it difficult, because this would be an ignoring the game thing, but yeah. Sorry, go on. Like, I want to hear why it's good.
No, it's true. And, I'll just talk about the characters as well. So Assassin's Creed has always kind of struggled a bit with tone and its stance on being historically accurate versus its nonsense Templar versus Assassins stuff. And I've always loved Assassin's Creed when it's been more fun and more just kind of adventurous, which is why I love, like Black Flag, for example, which is almost, it has contempt for its own fiction in a way, because you play as a rogue pirate who just thinks the Assassins versus Templars stuff is a load of fucking nonsense and he's going to rob everyone he can rob along with, as he's trying to get along with them. This one, with Origins and now Odyssey, they've gone into a different space, which I really like, where it's outright kind of just fantasy. Like it's like a fantasy game with dressed in Greek clothes, basically. And there's some sort of semi-supernatural stuff or just nonsense stuff. So you'll be wandering through a countryside and suddenly you'll find a boss boar, which is just an incredibly hard boar boss fight that summons mini boars. And you have to, it's a multi-stage fight with this boar that you found in this field, and it's a legendary animal that's just in the place.
It's like one of the labors of Hercules, wrestle a big boar. I might be misremembering that.
I think spawns other boars.
Yeah. The multi-boar.
And so your upgrade tree, for example, like lets you just set your blade on fire by just like stroking it or something. I don't know what happens. It's outright RPG fantasy stuff, but through a historical lens that, again, like it's not interested in being historically accurate about the Spartans, the Athenians and what they particularly wore, but everyone wears the coolest shit that kind of looks like people might have worn in the period. You know what I mean? It's extrapolating to a kind of extreme, you end up with a very vivid kind of fiction that I really enjoy and I really like exploring. And, combining that with the technology, that they've developed to create these open worlds, it's just an astonishing kind of audio-visual experience to go through it. And that, for me, is the reason to play it. I still don't fully love the combat. I think it's better. I think the more they go into fantasy territory and give you crazy abilities, there's an incredible ability that you disarm someone of their shield and you grab it and then you whack them across the face with it. And as you do that, you throw it and it's like a physics object that goes tumbling into the ocean like 20 feet behind them.
Awesome.
Hope this wasn't your favourite shield. Dickhead.
And that's fantastic because, the character you play as is, this isn't a spoiler, this is real super early, it was, born of a Spartan family. And so the idea is that you're aggressive all the time. You never use a shield. That's the difference between Origins and Odyssey. Is that you're always like dual wielding. You've got a big weapon. It's about parrying rather than, turtling like Dark Souls style behind a shield. So this particular move is just like, fuck shields. and every time I do it, I love it. And Origins, I wish they hadn't named them both so similarly. Origins didn't have that kind of sense of fun to me. Just the kind of slapstick move set that makes combat, even though it's not like especially challenging and it's not a lot of fun a lot of the time, it's entertaining in its moment animations.
Is there a kick move?
There fucking is a kick move.
Excellent.
So good.
Does it have any Dark Messiah of Might and Magic thing where it kind of like magnetically draws people into spikes or
it doesn't do that, but I will say that the Greek islands and Greece itself, there's a lot of verticality to it. Lots of cliffs.
Excellent.
And one of my favourite gifs of Odyssey so far actually is just someone kicking a lion off a cliff into the ocean. Extremely effective move.
Alice Bell wrote a very good article for Rock Paper Shotgun about the kicking.
It's very good.
And in that article is a great screenshot of the upgrade tree where you unlock the kicking. And my favourite bit of this, which wasn't commented on in the article I don't think, is the description of the kick specifically, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's basically, it does like this amount of warrior damage and doesn't prevent the opponent from being recruited later.
I'm fine with this.
And I think what that means is like it's a non-lethal.
Yes,
like,
that's right. That's right.
But it's just like, everyone loves the kick. The kick giveth, the kick taketh away. Like,
the recruitment stuff is hilarious. So you have to non-lethally disable someone before they'll work for you in this world.
Right.
Interesting employment law there. But you can stealth non-lethally recruit someone.
What?
So you can.
I mean, I love it, but what?
So you can sneak up behind someone and do like a non-lethal takedown, and then while they're down, you can recruit them.
Just like whisper in their ear, "Hey, have you thought about joining?"
That's literally what happens. It's not a joke. That's what happens. So,
hey, want to be my best friend? Hey,
this is learning from Horizon, because this is a thing that makes perfect sense in Horizon, because the way you convert things to your side in Horizon is you hack them because they're robots.
Sure,
and naturally they don't want you to get close, and it's hard to do it when they're fighting you, so naturally stealth is the way that you have to hack them, and it works perfectly because it's my two favorite things, stealth and turning people to my side.
Or Shadow of Mordor, where you touch the orc and the ghost in your body
also very logical.
Your friend. Makes complete sense. Like, I like that maybe this recontextualizes 300 a little bit, so that like there's one well for people you don't like and one big well for people you do like. And it's you, whichever well you kick them into.
Kick right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like kick left. Like,
but Odyssey has borrowed a lot from a lot of other open world games. The Shadow of Mordor comparison is legit actually, because there's a whole mercenary system where you do crimes. Just do those crimes, and mercenaries come after you and they hunt you across the world, and but there's a kind of like a whole hierarchy of them, and it's like you level up as you defeat them, and you can the idea is that you level up and then the hunter becomes the hunted and you start hunting them down, and you can find them on the map and kill them. But and they have Shadow of Mordor style orc weaknesses in exactly the same way. It's like, this person is weak to being cudgeled or whatever. You know. This
Me
person
too, actually.
is quite weak to being kicked off a cliff like a lion, or set on fire or whatever, or poisoned or whatever. It's very similar. And also, the kind of wanted level you build, you can pay people off to kind of decrease the GTA style. But if you don't, other mercenaries start chasing you at the same time. So you could be in a fight with a mercenary who's chasing you, and like two others will show up, and it's exactly like orcs in Shadow of Mordor. It's exactly the same. They've just seen that system and gone, yep, we'll have that. And that is great. Like, people should steal each other's systems.
If you cut their head off, can they come back with a bag over it?
I don't think they can, but I've not tested the system enough. I think once you've defeated them, they're gone, because there's a screen in the menu system where you see them kind of lined up once you've discovered them. And once you've defeated them, they turn away and look ashamed on that screen. So they just look really glum. They are dead at that point. They're sad because they're dead.
Yeah. They've gone to Hades to be ashamed.
It's a good game. It's a good game. I want to stress that it is good.
Yeah, I still really want to play it, but oh boy, that £7 to make it easier on your time is...
Does it have an eagle?
Fucking does have an eagle.
Excellent.
Again, the eagle is again amazing. It works. It behaves exactly the same way as Origins.
Awesome.
And the funny thing about Odyssey is that people comment on it in the world. So on the first island you start on, there's like a little girl who you help out and are kind of looked after, and she thinks you're kind of close to the gods because you've got this eagle that follows you around and does magic shit. Like, yeah, she's correct. That is.
To be fair, in ancient Greece, that would be legit as a, holy shit. Like, I think definitely true for the Romans, but like, bird omens and things like that,
yeah,
right? Like,
absolutely.
I think eagles are Zeus's bird, like.
So yeah, they make a thing of that, and she's like, "Oh, well, you must be magic. You must be like one with the gods because you've got that eagle." And then I play Cassandra. Both the characters are brilliant, but Cassandra is especially good. She's like, "Oh, it's just a bird." End of conversation.
Meanwhile, I'm just going to walk into my eagle and use it to mark people like a drone.
It's superb. It's a very good game. It's just it's interesting to examine that microtransactionism particular intersection between, people who want, it's so subjective, right? Because it depends on what you want from the game. Do you want it to be a time sink where you just exist in this world, or like us kind of hurried, people, we want something a bit faster.
Well, it's weird, like, cause I think I want to be able to just not treat it as just it exists in the world. But I also know that I bounce off things when you get the big town problem, right? It's not just open world games that suffer from this, it's just big games that suffer from this. And so, I don't know. Basically.
There are probably big decisions in the story as well. The Mass Effect kind of, choice stuff they've added is worthwhile and legit as well.
That's good. That's what's got me.
From what I've played in the first 8 hours, definitely.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. What have you been playing, Tom? We'll go around the circle.
I've been playing Race for the Galaxy. Which is originally a board game. Either of you know it?
No.
Huh. It's a board game I actually played a few years back, but now it's on PC and also iOS. I'm actually playing on iPad. But it's, I think there's a whole class of board games like this, but it was the first I played where I believe they're called sort of engine building, card games.
Yeah.
Where you're sort of, the cards you get are things like planets and space stations and, that's kind of it, actually. There's just a lot of different variations on that. And you can build them or not, and each one you build costs a certain amount of other cards. So if it has a 4 on it, then when you play it, you're going to have to discard 4 other cards to build it. But the sort of central mechanic is a very strange one, which is there are 5 or 6 phases to the game, that correspond to the different actions you can do. So one of them is called Explore, and that's where you draw cards and you keep some of them and discard others. And, Construct is where you build things like space stations. Settle is where you land on planets and, basically place a planet on the board and then keep it. And then there's Produce, where all your planets produce stuff, if they have that ability. And then Consume, where you can take the things you did produce and turn them into something else, like points. And the strange thing about it is that you don't do all those in a given turn. You have to, all the players, before the turn starts, secretly decide which they want to happen. And then, you all kind of reveal and you're going to do all of those things. But if you wanted the construct phase to happen because you wanted to construct a space station and your opponent played construct as well, it was kind of a waste for you to play construct. It would have been better if you'd played something else because you also want to get settle or something. So you're sort of trying to guess what your opponent's going to do. And if you think they're going to do what you want to happen, you could do something else as well. But then if you get it wrong, they don't do the thing and then you just don't get to build your thing that turn. So it's got a strange sort of gambling thing like that. And the other weird thing about it is that that's almost the only interaction you have with other players. I haven't ever encountered any abilities that, depend on what your opponent has or wreck what your opponent is up to, or in any way interfere with anything they're doing. So, you're just when I played it in real life, I just looked at my cards the entire time. I didn't pay attention to any other players, except occasionally. I don't think I even really did any predicting of I think someone else is probably gonna, and sometimes in the early game, it's very common for people to do Explore because you don't have very many cards, so you want to get more. And in the later game, it's more common for people to do Produce because they have a lot of stuff set up and they want to get at producing stuff. But beyond that, I don't really think about, I would have to know so much about what your shit is for me to predict what you're going to choose this turn in particular. I have to know not only what cards you have, and what stuff you understand, all the stuff you've already got on the table, but also which of those things you're thinking about doing this turn. And my chances of getting that right are so low that I pretty much just ignore it. And, if I want to construct something, I'll choose construct. And if you chose construct too, I'm that's fine. I still get to construct my thing. You even get a bonus for it for choosing it. So, it's 1 cheaper if you chose construct. And so you can really just keep yourself to yourself, but it's complex enough that is, easily enough to be thinking about. And it's really fun just to figure out, how do I take these cards I've been given and make a really cool setup that's going to generate points and, create goods. The 4 kinds of goods in this world are rare minerals, novelties, genes, and alien.
Genes is in genetic, not
genetics.
It's good denim.
Blue jeans
lovely
would be cool.
Denim. Prime denim.
And it's actually perfect for a computerization because it doesn't really matter what the opponent's doing. So like they sort of playing against other people. It does have multiplayer and you can play against other people, but, you just kind of don't need to. So it's quite a good fit for just playing against the AI. And I want to talk about the AI later because I saw a talk about it. And B, it's full of, there's just shitloads of rules. Like it's got this really efficient visual language where, every card, because every card can kind of potentially do things in different phases. Like if you have a planet, it might both produce something in the produce phase and also consume in the consume phase. Like give you a way of consuming something and getting 2 points out of it or getting a free card out of it. And it might also just as a, unrelated thing, in the explore phase, you get to look at more cards before you choose which ones you're going to keep. And so that is just down the left-hand side of all the cards. But what they do is both described in text, but also shown with a complex system of icons that there is a logical consistency to it. Like it does make sense. Theoretically, you could learn that language and just know exactly what the card did without having to read the description. Which is pretty impressive because there's so much going on. Like, you know, for each thing, it can be a world or it can be a construct or, you know, building or whatever. And if it's a world, it can be military or not military. If it's military, it could be rebel or non-rebel. If it's in any of those three cases, it could produce a good of any of 4 different kinds, or it could be a windfall world for that good, which means it doesn't produce it, but under certain circumstances, it will get one for free. Or it could do neither of those things. Then that's like, all of that is on top of all of its abilities. So all of that just has to be in one icon. Oh, and also it has a amount of cards it costs to build, an amount of victory points it gets you for building it. And all of that is somehow communicated in just a few icons, but there's just shitloads going on. And so it's really nice playing it on a computer where it just tells me in this situation, you can play these 3 cards. You can't play anything else. And, once you get like a good setup of all these buildings, all these planets and constructions producing things, and you get to the consume phase, the way that works is like, if you have like 5 consume abilities and you only got 3, goods to actually consume, you pick which consume ability you want to trigger, and then you pick which good you want to consume with it. And there are reasons you might want to particularly use that one on that kind of good and to save this other one for later, because that one can only use blue goods. And it's one thing I'm pretty sure I must have got wrong when I was playing it in real life is you have to consume if you can. And so I had to set up where like I had 2 consume abilities, I had 3 planets that could consume things, and I produced 3 goods each turn. But my 3 consume abilities was 1, it turns the good into a card, another it turns the card into another one it turns the good into a victory point, and the third one was you can feed it any number of goods and it gives you however many you gave it, it gives you 1 less than that victory points. And so I couldn't use all 3 of those in a given turn productively because 2 of them require a good each. I only have 1 good left after that, and this one gives me 1 less than that, so 0. And so I'm like, in real life, I'd just be like, okay, so I don't do that because I can't like get anything out of it. But you have to do it. If you can consume, you must consume. And so you have to pointlessly just throw your good away each turn. And because I'm playing on a computer version, it just won't let me progress until I do that. Like it enforces the rules. And also, yeah, it's just really good for like, this card gives you 2 victory points for every brown world you have that's producing, but not windfall worlds and not military worlds. And this card gives you 1 victory point for every station you have that does something on the consume phase. And instead of having to add all that up, it just tells you it's 7. That comes to 7.
It's interesting kind of space where card games or board games become slightly too complicated and end up becoming sort of better video games.
Yeah.
And I often think about Solium Infernum, for example, which is a game that I think would benefit immensely from people being face to face while playing it, given that a lot of the mechanics are about betrayal and, you know, undermining each other. But the mechanics themselves are absolutely too complicated to do it with real tokens. But it's weird that the game also just gives you loads of little virtual tokens that are scattered across a fake desktop that you kind of move around and spend. And there's an interesting point where, you know, a physical system becomes slightly better with the computer.
Yeah.
Do you think you would play this? Are you more interested in playing Race to the Galaxy in real life, having now kind of...
No, less interested actually, because now I'm like, now all that bookkeeping is taken care of for me, I couldn't go back to having to do it all myself. Like, it's so nice just to have it all added up and summed up.
Is this a Asmodee Digital thing? is an Asmodee thing. Just because the board game publisher Asmodee has done a bunch of, or it has done / is doing a bunch of conversions of quite big board games to games like Risk, Legacy, and Pandemic.
This one, I know the name of the people digitizing it well enough that if you said it, I would know if you said it or not.
Okay.
But I don't know the name of the.
So I'd say every name of
every board game.
What I'm saying, open my mouth and admit
the name of the company who digitized it is not Asmodee, because I would know. But I know that this adaptation came about because, so I saw a GDC talk about it, and I forget the speaker's name, but she, wanted to see if there was an AI, that could play, Race to the Galaxy when it was just a board game, and found this, open source AI, a neural net this guy had made. She really liked it, and she actually just wanted to like add a feature to it, where it would like ping you when the AI was ready to take a turn or whatever. And she ended up contacting like the creators of the board game to say, hey, has anyone ever talked to you about making the digital version? And then they came back and said, no, but if you're going to do it, you should look at this neural net thing that this guy made. And so that is the AI they've based their thing on. And there's a talk about how, I don't know if it's public yet, it's on the GDC Vault, about how that neural net works. And basically, like on a very, very basic level, it is able to, through endless experience, through loads of test games, know for a given move, what is the percentage probability that this leads to a win? Like how often in this kind of situation does playing that card ultimately lead to me winning? And it can weight that by like, how much did I win that time that I played that card and won? And, how does that weigh off versus like the 98% of the time I didn't win after playing that card? And because it knows that, it can be trained to, have a very good base of knowledge for that. And because it's a complicated game, it's better at learning that than most humans are. And because it can also, because it can know what the best move in a situation is when it's playing against a good human, it can guess what the human will do because it knows what the best thing for the human to do is. And therefore predict what they're going to do. So it does weird counterintuitive things like, it has a bunch of stuff to construct and it doesn't vote for the construct phase. It votes for the explore phase, even though, or the settle phase or something, even though it doesn't have anything that it could settle yet, because it's so sure that the human player is going to do the construct
deny them
because it's the best thing for the human player to do. And so it doesn't need to vote for the construct.
We're doomed. We're all doomed.
But
that's
then
fun.
One of the most interesting things was, and they've got that to, apparently it's in the 99th percentile of players, the AI, it's better than 99% of humans. So it's like, it's good enough that they don't need to make it any better. And then for the easier AIs, like they don't want every AI opponent to be that good. The way they do that is for all its moves, it has that score of like, what percentage is this to win the game? And, if it's the final card you play and it will win you the game, that's 100 and, everything else is lower. Rather than have it like sort of always do the second best option or always do the third best option or anything like that, all those scores just add a bit of noise. So it just adds like a little random value to all of those. So it has the true data and then it corrupts it slightly. So it's like it's kind of seeing through a fog or something. Like I seem to remember that maybe this card is the best one, but I'm not totally sure. And, that just like corrupts its decision making like very, very slightly. And then they can just tune that amount of noise, the way they judge its difficulty is they test it against itself. So the hard one, which is the best one they can do, they balance the medium one so that it loses to the hard one 75% of the time. And then if they want it to win or lose more, they can just change the amount of noise that's added to its decision-making process, which is really interesting.
I want to say that sometimes, occasionally, 2018 is amazing.
Yeah.
Like someone is like, oh, I've got a really interesting idea. I found a bloke who's made a neural net. And now I'll turn this into this incredible system that can adapt to human behavior and make entertainment for them. That's exceptional.
Yeah.
That's really good. That reminded me of, the idea that the AI kind of knows the truth and it knows the optimal path is like the core of lots of difficulty in AI design in RTS stuff as well. It made me laugh because recently I was watching videos of Football Manager 2019 and they've added VAR, which is video assisted refereeing, in the real sport where, if people aren't sure what's happened on the pitch, the referee can go to, watch some replays on a screen. And they've added this to this game. And there's a whole like animation in the match engine which shows the little referee, tiny little referee, very slowly, like running to the middle of the centre and running off the pitch to look at a fake television screen to discover what the entire game already knows definitely happened because it was fucking programmed to happen in a certain way and the ball was mapped and everything was correct. Yeah. And then it generates fake drama on the basis of that by making a little man run around.
Why don't they have the we're all living in a simulation assisted refereeing system?
Why don't they have the Matrix moment?
Exactly.
What?
It went in, says God, the architect.
I see it. I love the kind of puppetry of that and the absurd kind of farce of it, really.
I really like, man, this is extremely relevant to Hackmud law, weirdly, so I don't want to go too deep into it, but like, I love the idea that in order to make AI believable and, comfortable to use, there's a degree of fuzziness they require. Like that you know, too specific exposes both extreme capability, but also extreme incapability. Like when the AI is dead set determined that it knows what the answer is and it's completely wrong, which is like the Siri kind of issue. Or more broadly, like the Google issue. Like there's a really good, tweet recently, which was like, someone Googling plot of 1984, as in the book. And Google just generated a graph that plotted the number 1984. And it's like, yeah, that's completely 100% correct. But like, you know, what you need in that scenario is sort of, I guess sort of like semantic ambiguity, which could also just be fuzziness, right? It can just be like, I've just made a slightly different call, or I've kind of accepted that this thing you've said has lots of different interpretations and maybe I can make a mistake. That is like a fuzziness that AI requires in order to pass into a different kind of band of interpretability, which is interesting because it means that pure kind of capability is not the key to making something believable, which I find kind of endlessly fascinating. It's like you've got to generate a cast of complete fuck ups in order for people to kind of buy it. But yeah, no, that's rad. And I think, like it's really cool to have that sort of AI applied to a fundamentally a social mechanic as well. Like, has anyone ever made an AI for like Werewolf or Mafia? That would be really fascinating because that seems like something that's probably possible in a machine learning-y kind of way in the same way.
There's a lot of, I guess like the conversation side of it, it couldn't keep up with that. But, she actually gave One Night Ultimate Werewolf as an example of a thing you couldn't make a neural network for in this way because, not because of the social side of it, but because it's only one turn. Like this neural network needs lots of turns to kind of accumulate knowledge and measure its performance against previous turns and things like that.
I love, I've played a lot of Werewolf in my life and I love Werewolf as a sort of demonstration of how like real life neural, like information networks form between people. It's really fascinating. Like once a year I go to Cornwall with a bunch of friends and basically there's like one Sunday is given over just playing back-to-back games of Werewolf with the same group of people. And I run all of them. And you notice the most amazing things about how information passes between people in a group. Like, there's one friend that I've known for 20 years who is doomed to never play past the first turn of Werewolf because it started as like the first game we played years ago. He was a werewolf. And then that leads to completely, this is partly like wisdom of crowd stuff, the weakness of wisdom of crowd stuff. There's other things related to this, like, well, this person's been a werewolf what feels like a statistically unlikely number of times, therefore they're probably a werewolf now. And the way the game Werewolf works is you need like a kind of safe victim on the first turn. Yeah. Like you need to pick somebody. So who do you pick? Oh, it might as well be our friend Robin. And like, it's genuinely become like we almost have to step in and like, it becomes a really interesting question for like, as a sort of a game master, I guess, because do you say like, hey guys, it sucks that it's been 5 years and Robin has never played a full game of Werewolf. Let's give him a break because if in that time he happens to be a werewolf, you've just completely broken the game. So maybe the best thing to do as a game designer is just to not touch it and just to be like, well, I'm sorry, humans. It's like you can blame AI for being weird all the time, but that is a totally human generated neural net problem where it's kind of learned that like, it thinks that 80% of the time Robin is a werewolf, therefore always kill Robin is like a kind of rule it's generated. And you need fuzziness in that system to make this group of humans less like
persecutorial
to Robin specifically. Yeah.
I was playing one of those games. What's the, like King Arthur type one?
Not Coup. Is it Coup?
No. I do know Coup as well, but
it's a variant of.
There's one called something like Insurgency.
Yeah, there's a
Avalon?
There's a King Arthur version of a game that's
really frustrating for anyone who does know this.
Yeah. Oh god.
Anyway,
you're jumping
that
a
game.
bit. Yes. No, I know exactly what you mean. It'll come to me, but it's not coming to me now.
Resistance Avalon, isn't that it?
Yes. It's definitely the version, it's a King Arthur version of a game that has a different identity.
Anyway, I was playing that and, it was just like, I was one of the good guys and I was trying to figure out who the bad guys were. And it just kind of led to a sort of logic, like I just couldn't figure it out. There's just no good answer to the evidence that I had. And then it turned out at the end that just one of the good players had one time voted for the thing to go bad, and for no reason, they just hadn't really understood the rules. And it's just like, if you have one piece of information that like, just fundamentally doesn't make sense, all of the deduction that comes from it is just nonsense after that point.
That's why those games are so good. They're honestly some of my favorite bits of game design, because they're so simple, but they just create like endlessly memorable situations, basically thanks to the weaknesses in human programming.
Makes me realize I wouldn't want to be a detective, because if one fucking person is like completely innocent that's just told you something utterly wrong, it becomes unsolvable.
There's no way to forgotten something stupid, right? Yeah. Man.
What have you been playing, Chris?
So I've been playing Distance, which so I have a funny history with this game, because I started my career at PC Gamer back in 2011, brought in to help out sort of over Christmas, and then never left, basically. And you remember, Tom, because I was living on your couch at the time.
Indeed.
And I remember I did this free games roundup for Christmas. This was Christmas 2011. And I picked this, free kind of, sort of like Neon-tronish racing game, time trial game called Nitronic Rush. Really liked it.
I remember that.
And right afterwards, the developers got in touch because they hadn't really gotten any coverage. So it turned into like one of the first interviews I ever did with the guys who were just leaving DigiPen, I think, and going to make their own studio, which is called Refract. And then they launched a Kickstarter for what would basically be the professional version of Nitronic Rush. And, I backed that Kickstarter, because I liked them and I liked the game. Anyway, 6.5 years later, my entire career happens, and their game comes out. And it's been in early access for a while. Like, it had a pre-testing time, but like, I think weirdly, because I had paid for it already, like, you know, I backed the Kickstarter, I just sort of waited for my final version 1.0 key to show up. And it was really weird to, I'll talk about what it is in a sec, but like, it was really weird to finish the sort of single player portion of the game. And it ends, so you drive through the credits. It's a driving game. And you drive through like, you know, stylish tracks, the main credits flash by, and then you get sort of deposited in this world where you can drive around these spheres with these little sort of like lights on them. And as you drive through a light, a name comes up, and it's where all of the Kickstarter backers are. And different colored lights have different names beginning with different colors. So I think if you drive into the orange section, I'm in there somewhere. And I've got a screenshot. It was really weird to like, after all these years, to like kind of just drive around and have my own name pop up in the credits. In its own way. Anyway, so what it is a sort of time trial kind of challenge track racing game. Sort of in the Trackmania vein. Trackmania is probably the most ready comparison. But it's pretty much its own thing. So you're a kind of cyber car traveling across a kind of cyber landscape most of the time. And, you have, you don't control like a car. You have very precise control. It feels like the car is more like an analogy for the thing you are. And for example, you kind of go at a set speed, until you choose to boost, and you should probably be boosting all of the time, but boosting fills up a heat gauge and you explode. I get reset back to a checkpoint if you let it fill up.
That's cars for you.
That's cars for you. But there are periodic, checkpoints that, cool the car back down, even if you're going full blast.
I see.
And those are often tailored to mean that if you're driving well, you never have to let go of the button. Like, it's only if you screw up that you have to then slow down so you don't overheat, if that makes sense.
That's an interesting way of kind of dictating a racing line, beyond.
Yeah, it's almost like reverse cars. It's like,
yeah, right.
It's like if you're going too slowly, you need to slow down so that you can speed up.
Right.
But when you're going well, it feels great because you get this thing where you're like, I trust I'm going as fast as I possibly can. Therefore, that checkpoint looks too far away, but I suspect it's been placed precisely. You know, there are no varying chassis or anything like that. You're in a standard vehicle that always, you know, has the same maximum speed as everybody else. So, you know, the level design can be very, very precise. You can also, sorry, go on.
Sorry, this feels a lot like Wipeout. Like if you, when you start to get really good at Wipeout, it's about chaining the boosts that you can see on the track. And if you hit the boost in the right angle, you're going to corner fine with a little bit. You don't have to necessarily brake too much.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting.
Like trust in the level designer.
Right, yeah. But it's also, it's got that racing element of learning the tracks as well.
Yeah.
Just kind of knowing where that stuff's going to be.
And so, and to be clear, these aren't tracks, they don't loop. They're one-way runs to the end. Okay. Basically, like Trackmania. But Wipeout's a good comparison. Like, I love Wipeout, and I think it's certainly aesthetically as well. It has a lot of that feel. You can also jump. You have jets on the bottom. While you're in the air, you have the ability to open the doors, at which point you become a plane. But that has its own, that generates heat constantly, and actually slows you down. It's kind of better to be on the ground if you can be. And also different tracks might switch off your ability to do that at different points. So you might force you into the ground. You can also do things like fire your thrusters upwards to create downforce, to push yourself onto the track. Okay. Because you can also, and this is where the game really opens up. So, like, it's fundamental vocabulary. Like, I love movement mechanics. That's kind of like a big reliable thing for me. Like, if your game has interesting movement mechanics, whether it's a racing game or a shooter, I will probably like it. And so, a big part of this is your ability to like drive up walls. While your car is in the air, you rotate it in full 3D, like as a kind of fully rotatable object. You don't have air control in the way that you might think of it in a platformer. So in a traditional platformer, when you jump, because platformers are an important touchstone for what kind of game this is. In a platformer, when you jump, you're used to being able to kind of like move about in the air a bit to land on the next platform. That's not how distance works. When you jump, you are going in the direction you are going when you move, if that makes sense. Like real jumping. As soon as you leave the ground, you lose your ability to really control your, direction or speed. But what you can control is the rotation of the car. So like a trick it teaches you eventually, is you'll be shooting along super, super fast, and the road you're on will end, like abruptly, and there'll be another road sideways, sort of 90 degrees perpendicular to it, running alongside it. And what you need to do is drive so you're kind of like pointing into what is basically a wall, jump, and then rotate the car 90 degrees, and then the camera will rotate with you, and now you're on the wall.
Oh, right.
But obviously if you jump now, you're going to go to the right, for example, if the wall was on the left, because gravity is in a particular direction, that doesn't change.
Okay.
And so it sounds kind of mind melting, and it kind of is. But it's rad, basically. And it feels really, really good to pull it off. And I think 6.5 years of development, this has benefited from, mean that it sort of offers loads of different experiences at the same time. So like, there is a single player campaign, basically, where you are basically, it's beautifully presented. It has no UI, like also no kind of traditional UI. Everything is on the back windscreen of the car.
Cool.
Which is super cool.
Yeah.
And the heat meter is basically around what would be your brake lights as they light up. Music is great. And the single player campaign has you kind of drive a car that might be an AI, that might be a robot, through a space station, that might be a teleporter, that might just be the dream of a robot. It's in the genre of indie game story called Is This a Robot?
Something's in a coma.
Is it an AI? And I say this with fondness because I'm writing one of those. So there's an element like, is it a robot? It's in that, but it's beautifully presented, and like loads of great, like the story, like it's a story that's told wordlessly. So it is just a sort of inferred robo-tale in that genre, basically. Yeah. But it's basically just teaches you the game as you race through these kind of like sci-fi environments. Lots of cool kind of glitch effects and kind of, just great music, and like, it's sort of, in some ways, like I liked Thumper, but it's almost the game I wish Thumper was in some ways. Like Thumper's great and almost mad, like, but this has got more like, you feel like you've got a little bit more control. It's not just sort of screaming towards this.
Yeah, Thumper's very much like a rhythm action game. Isn't it? Like, less than a kind of racing game.
Yeah, I feel like there's a continuum, in terms of games where you're racing forwards really quickly, where you get rhythm action games on one side of the spectrum and you've got like just traditional platformers on the other. And then racing games are in the middle. I don't know if there's a weird span to kind of, but like this is in the middle of that. And so like when you get really good at it, it feels like you're playing with a sense of rhythm. Yeah. And getting set back sucks. And so I played about half the campaign. which I like, but it takes a little bit, buries the lead a little bit, I think. And then I went and just played some multiplayer. So multiplayer has, a form of multiplayer I really love, which is the sort of like just hang out and try and beat the challenge multiplayer. And there are multiple different kinds, but it's like, basically like you can't interact with other players, you can't bump them off the track or anything. It's time trial. But like everyone just sort of hangs out on the server until everyone's finished the time trial. And there's full like custom map creation tools and things for players to use. So inevitably when you join a server, it pulls down whatever the players are playing. It's probably not something from the game proper. And therefore sort of my first experience of multiplayer was playing like the hardest imaginable tracks. Like the amount, like there's a lot of stuff going on. It has Portal style portals. It has gravity switches. It has, well, not gravity switches in that way, but like you can go through a portal and come out somewhere where the gravity is completely different. It can require you to fly a bit and then drive up a wall sideways and flip onto something else. And that reminds me a lot of Trackmania. Yeah, but it also reminds me a lot of something that I'm very, very fond of. This is a deep cut, but, Team Fortress Classic jump maps.
Right.
Which are a very specific feature of my adolescence, that I don't think has an equivalent nowadays, which is where you would load into a Team Fortress map and the goal was simply to get to the end of it. And you could only do this by being very, very good at conch jumping, which is where you drop the medic's concussion grenade behind you in midair, which is just sort of trick jumping. It's basically like, it's like rocket jumping for hipsters. And this has that feel to it, that kind of like, we're just going to load into a server and this track looks impossible. And you're trying to find out how to surmount it. And it was doing that and sort of definitely coming last, but kind of making my way through a track like that I realized how much finesse there is in like the movement mechanics and like jumping from surface to surface with your rocket car, all of this stuff. And then I think, I feel like, it's not necessarily a criticism, but I feel like the single player campaign as it's initially presented buries that lead a little bit. It doesn't introduce jumping from surface to surface until very deep into it. It's not especially long. It's like a 90-minute, 2-hour to play through it sort of thing. But you do definitely kind of like have to play through a lot of basically just driving forwards at speed through a exciting environment, which is not a bad thing before you get to like the really technical stuff. And I think that's probably a good thing because it means that if the other stuff sounds intimidating, then you have a big run up. But it does mean that I think its best features don't appear till later in that campaign. There are other things like sometimes tracks have like lasers or buzzsaws in them. And if you sometimes you run into an obstacle, you just blow up. But if you run into them, they carve up your car in a 1-to-1 way with the direction of the attack. And then you keep going. So it's like if you go completely in half, you're a bike now. Congratulations. If you get cut sort of like diagonally across the middle, that's fucking weird. How a car work? Don't really go in a circle. But you're stuck like this now. And there's a button you can press to blow yourself up. But like, yeah.
God, it's hard being a car, isn't it?
It is hard being a car.
But it's a surprising amount of effort to put into a like destruction system where surely almost everyone who has that happen to them is going to.
Well, because sometimes, the other part of that mechanic is if you go through a checkpoint, the same ones that cool you down, they fully repair the car as well. So it's like if you're flinging through the air and you happen to get sliced in half and you can kind of finesse it into the gate, then you've kind of styled it out.
That's really cool. This sounds great.
It's great. I really like it. And then then there's loads more to it. So there's like, and then after sort of that, there's what's called arcade mode, basically, which is like, I think they're called sprints, which is a great idea. They're basically extremely short levels that are full of bullshit in a good way. Like, so it's like, this is extremely short, but full of obstacles. And there's, I'm getting it wrong. Maybe they're challenges. There's a couple. Then there's sort of traditional time trial runs through developer built levels. And there's loads of stuff that I really like. Like whenever you load one of those levels, it will just download 5 ghosts, which is a great sentence, from, I think, your friends list primarily, and then if it can't find things in your friends list, from the internet generally, just to give you other people to race against. So it's like, you can't interact with them at all, but like, rather than having to opt in to seeing other players' best times, it just downloads like a selection of ghosts for you. And because there's like bronze, silver, and gold time, thresholds for each stage, it means that like, I think based on watching it, I think it picks like a couple of bronze, a couple of silver, and a couple of gold. So it feels like you have a pack to race against and they're other players. So even when you're not playing a multiplayer, you feel the presence of other people. And that's a really cool way of completely avoiding having to do AI because you just get to see like, obviously it's people who finish the track, I think. So you see some people screw up and leave their mistakes in because you can't just restart. But it's just a really nice feature. And it is like just, a very full featured, like I've been booting, I think I've been playing it for about a week now. And it's a really good to sort of boot up and play a couple of tracks thing. And obviously this medium podcast is not great for explaining why it looks nice or why the music's great. but they are, and it is. And the other thing is that when you get out the single player, which has its very specific aesthetic, both player-made maps and in those time trial kind of modes, you get loads of really surprising kind of changes in art style and stuff.
Cool.
And that's just a really cool thing to encounter. And often, like, you know, you go from like these kind of like cyber landscapes and neon kind of wastelands and things to suddenly trying to navigate a haunted house, which has its own soundtrack and has mechanics that don't appear anywhere else to do with like fake outs and kind of portals. Because the cool thing is that like those checkpoints I've been mentioning, it's at the track creator's discretion to choose what they look like. So a gameplay thing is like sometimes checkpoints are really visible and they span the whole map and you can see when they're coming. Sometimes they're a small gate that you have to try and go through in order to gain the benefit of the checkpoint. Sometimes they're invisible. So you just have to trust that there will be one. And if there isn't, then you have to kind of learn that. It changes the feel of the track in a really interesting way. It's really good, basically. I'm glad that it turned out as good as it did because it was based on a proven thing, but.
Yeah, it sounds great. I'm definitely going to play this. It sounds awesome. It did, like, when talking about it, like, maybe think about Trackmania. That game should have taken over the world. It was fantastic. Like, it was really fun. It's kind of like Micro Machines. And it was the racing game that anyone could play, right? It was the racing that you didn't need to know anything about racing to enjoy it.
Yeah. And they would like run on a 486 and look incredible.
Yeah, exactly right. And it had all these kind of user created tools that let people build insane tracks. And then it just seemed to, I think they just fucked up the business model at one point where they released a new Trackmania and charged £20 for it when it would have been the best free to play.
I got the impression that it did reasonably well over time, but I think they also got quite distracted with, I think they were bought by Ubisoft at one point, and they also got distracted by Shootmania, which didn't do anything really. Again, one of my earliest press trips.
Yeah, Trackmania is legit actually.
There was, there definitely has been some free Trackmanias, or Trackmania is the correct Latin word.
Yeah.
Cause I remember, I can't remember if I reviewed it or if I was just doing something on it for PC Gamer, but, one of the ones I played, the currency bought you like tokens and I think you just play the track as much as you like, but if you wanted to log a score, you had to pay a token to play. And then that's the run that counts. And so, you couldn't just sort of reset unlimited. And that I was like, the amount of tension that added to that run was, extreme and made me way more invested and way more interested in it. And it actually almost kind of worked. It was kind of an interesting system to make one particular attempt at a track really, really count.
Shall we do some, hey!
Interference.
Shall we do some questions from questions?
Why don't I like that?
Or Tom gonna pretend to be a little horse.
Yeah, this is questions.
Was that a sound check sort of thing?
We certainly haven't
horse from all the talking.
Yeah, haven't had any whiskies between the
it hasn't been like a 40-minute break that we've spent getting increasingly sad about how much time has transpired
in the
just
world.
generally.
Time, What about that?
Good.
What about time?
Our first question. No one answered my question, but that's fine. Our first question comes from Steve, who writes, "Dear Crate and Switch, a few weeks ago, Valve dropped a surprise on the Linux gaming community in the shape of Proton. Instead of having to run Windows-only games through various compatibility layers to play them, Steam for Linux now has them built in. This makes them both easier to play and show up in the developers' stats as Linux players. Of course, the community is split on whether this is a good thing. The pessimists think this will destroy native Linux gaming. The developers will not just bother directly supporting Linux if their new games just work via Proton. The optimists think it's the boost we need to be taken seriously, as all the dual-booting virtual machine running gamers will start playing via Proton instead and show developers the true number of Linux gamers. I'd like to ask the panel what they think. I used to be firmly in the no tucks, no bucks camp, but I bought 50 quid worth of Windows games this month, including Heat Signature, because they work with Proton. Keep up the good pod, Steve."
This sounds like a good thing, right?
This is news to me, I have to say. Somebody had mentioned Proton to me and I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. And, I didn't realize this was like a big Steam-wide thing they'd done. And it sounds great to me as a developer who doesn't want to have to go through the pain of supporting Linux. So in terms of Linux support and like developers' willingness to do it, there was a bit of an artificial spike in native Linux support around the time the Humble Bundle became a big thing. because that is why Gunpoint is on Linux and Mac. And for heat signature, it hasn't been a huge priority because the actual like sales you get from having a Linux version don't really justify the development time, at least at my scale. But back when Humble Bundle was new, you had to have a Linux version to be in a Humble Bundle, and also being in a Humble Bundle was one of the biggest deals in the world of indie gaming. And these days, it is less so, and Steam sales are much more so, and so the balance is such that it actually doesn't make as much financial sense. And so I think there was like a big spike in lots and lots of people doing native Linux versions, and now maybe it's trailing off a bit. At the same time, the tools to do it have got a bit easier, but then the issue is that like just sort of creating a Linux version is not where the work is. The work is then you launch that, and then a million people with a million different distros will come back to you and say, oh, it breaks for this reason, or it doesn't work for that reason. So to me, this sounds like a good thing.
That was a really good informed answer. That I feel like I've learned things from that. But what I really want to know is it Linux? Is it Linux? Or is it Linux?
Sounds like the
votes from the panel
version.
So I grew up saying Linux. And then it was only when corrected that I started saying Linux. And as you will know, in pre-reading this question while we were talking about them before we started recording, I said it 3 different ways.
So I've always said Linux, but if you ask me to name the creator of Linux, I would say Linus Torvalds.
I think it's Linus.
Okay.
But I might be wrong about that. My only comment about this is that whenever anyone uses the phrase, boost we need to be taken seriously in a kind of non-life-threatening circumstance, I think of Arrested Development. Specifically the we demand to be taken seriously magician's picture. Like, regardless of context, that's not supposed to be shade on the Linux community. I just can't not think of that when you say that. I just think of that picture, and I'm sorry, but that's where my mind goes.
I think if you say no tucks, no bucks, you're already a little bit like up for the bit of parody.
That makes me think of the soap. That makes me think of the aftershave, like the deodorant / perfume man in the bogs of every slightly dodgy, marginally upscale nightclub in Middle England.
God, yeah.
But no, I'm glad this is easier to do because
it sounds good to me.
Yeah,
I don't understand precisely why people would be annoyed.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I completely understand the appeal and utility of Linux. Like, I have a Linux laptop that I've been using for press strips for years because it's very good for that kind of thing. But I'm not someone who's ever tried to game on that kind of system, partly because professionally, like, without a Windows PC to play games on, you cannot do the job.
Yeah.
What we've done for a long time.
As well as saying that.
And also, sorry, fuck Windows.
Entirely fuck
Windows. As an aside,
and that is, as well as saying Valve are very keen to support Linux gaming. Like, they would like Linux gaming to be a much bigger thing than it is. Yeah. It would be great for them if it was, and not because they have any, like, skin in the game specifically, but just because they don't like being so dependent on Windows. Like, if Microsoft do some terrible thing tomorrow, it could fuck with Valve a lot. And so they would love it if Linux was a bigger part of the market.
Godspeed, Linux.
Are you the only person?
I'm starting it right here. Linux. It's happening now.
Congratulations, Linux community. Demand to be taken seriously now.
I'm really sorry. Yeah. Everyone with Linux.
We can't create or impose Linux.
Can't we?
Without also introducing Window.
Oh, Window.
This has gotten weird and silly. Let's move on to this email, which is from City Slick Sparrow, who writes, Bountiful greetings, dear Kale and Rhubarb. Whenever people on the internet dig up the topic of good writing in games, a crop of discussions around plot-heavy, narrative-driven games, especially those overripe with dialogue, is sure to follow. This kind of bugs me, as fiction is not the only form of writing we of a species has cultivated. Do you know of any games that are lush with good writing, but focus on neither tale-telling nor dialogue? Have you had the pleasure of biting into a juicy bit of flavored text that is not rooted in story or world building? So Dark Souls is forbidden fruit here. We're all excited about games as stories, but where can one find the seeds of games as poetry or games as straightforwardly discursive essays? Thanks for the delicious pea pods. A City Slick Sparrow. So this is tough because games tend not to be documentaries. Which maybe this is bad, maybe that's not a good thing. But yeah, so it's tough to think of examples of, games that aren't fiction. But, well.
I will say games do this when they move outside of language. So Proteus is a game which has a story that forms through sensation, but there's no kind of meaning attached necessarily.
Yeah.
But there's also no writing.
Yeah, this person's asking specifically for writing.
But I kind of not sure, like, I can't even quite imagine the game that...
Well, so there's so for example, if you enjoyed Assassin's Creed 2 through Revelations, you will have enjoyed Danny Wallace explaining Italian architecture to you. There you go. That happened.
Okay. Yeah. That was extremely boring.
I will say that there is a great art to writing tutorial text, which is non-fiction text in games. And
that's technically true. Yeah.
That is virtually poetry in terms of like how few words you have and how much meaning you have to impart and how the margin for error is just like you have to get every fucking word precisely right.
I'm going to interrupt you here, Tom, and say this
might be the biggest take you've ever had.
This is my favourite Tom Francis moment of 2018. Tutorial text is a kind of poetry.
Poetry is like, the poetry metric is just like amount of meaning divided by number of words, right? That's how you calculate it? As I understand
I guess. Shit.
Like, oh no.
Like all my fucking English lit grad
what the
neurons
fuck is the
just
point of my
fucking
degree?
Exploded. And then you were right, which is...
Tom Francis just picked up my degree, staked it through the heart, and it turned to dust.
Yeah. I hate this. I hate that because you have like a dual spec in both like sciences and arts and humanities, which makes you overpowered in a kind of way. And in particularly, like, was it maths and philosophy?
Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
Shit.
So the two that destroy the others in their own discipline. That shit is broken. You can't have philosophy because it kills all the other humanities. You can't have maths because it kills the other scientists. Sciences, I mean. Anyway, shit.
So
I was about to make this argument that it's difficult to do poetics in games and also, adhere to this. The question is, constraint about it being non-fiction, because poetics inevitably lead to a kind of, a heightened sense of language or a sort of evocative space where fiction is a necessary component. But then Tom fucking ruined that.
What is meaning divided by length? Then poetry
equals poems.
This is, I'm partly parroting like a character from an Ian M. Banks book, I think Use of Weapons, where the main character is like a warrior who decides to learn to be a poet and just kind of completely misunderstands what poetry is and just thinks it's like, oh, you just want to like say emotions in the fewest words possible.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's lots of words, but they're all very meaningful. Yeah.
But it's definitely like the thing tutorial text and poetry have in common, at least, is you have to choose your words very carefully and you have to get each one exactly right or it's disastrous.
I feel satisfied with that answer, but also despair.
Sadness, but hooray for Skeleton.
A counterpoint would be that tutorial text, the way you get it right is you endlessly test it and just change it if it doesn't seem to have the desired effect, which probably is not how poetry is made.
That's how the best poems are perhaps made. Who knows? No one's tried that yet.
I mean, yeah, I think they should be open to it.
Interesting. That'd be a good art project.
I feel like...
crowdsource that.
Like, it makes you think of like... Oh man. Like... So the thing I would say about that isn't true of... isn't true of tutorial text, that is true of poetry, is poetry.
We're struggling to find a difference.
Poetry frequently achieves its aims through inference rather than what is literally said. And you cannot do that with tutorial text.
I would definitely agree
like that is, like, thank God. Those 3 years of my life were not in vain.
Saved it.
Like, if,
save literature, everybody.
Like, you can't be like, press X perhaps. Like, oh, did you jump? That's interesting.
What does that mean? What does it mean?
If you didn't jump, could you have? We don't know. That's not how that works.
I would love to play the game with this tutorial so much. Imagine.
Yeah.
The Wordsworth tutorial.
What does it mean to go high and then be back on the ground again? What does that mean?
Two paths diverged in the yellow wood. I went left because that was where the arrow was pointing.
I have pressed the X button that was on your controller. Forgive me.
It was so tactile, so visceral, so
jump.
so jump.
So we had a lot of fun with this tutorial. But to bring it back to the question, I'm trying to imagine a video game plot delivered in the way as described in this question, like with no kind of like specific indication of what is happening. But
Destiny.
But that had like...
No, it didn't.
Oh, it was on a website, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was basically poetry delivered on trading cards that you unlocked by firing a gun enough times at the face of a skeleton.
Was it? I mean,
this is poetry that you could only dream of previously.
But that's pure lore, right? That's pure background lore.
But is it? Because it's very, because it's delivered, it's practically in verse. Like, that stuff is, like, it's highly stylized. It doesn't rhyme, but it's delivered in a biblical kind of meter. Like, the Book of the Worm from the Taken King. That, is basically just
delicious apocryphal text.
Space skeleton Bible is what that is, right? Like, it is written in that mythic style. It has the cadence of, like, sort of oral storytelling, or, you know, like the Odyssey, for example, like Homeric kind of verse. Doesn't necessarily rhyme, but it's got that kind of rhythm to it.
And it's technically not in the game.
And it's technically not in the game. It's not a documentary. That's important to note. But I do feel like the questioner maybe imposed one too many restrictions on trying to find other kinds of writings in games when they said it must also be true. But yeah, I think, you know, I think it's interesting to try and figure out simply from a fiction point of view, and I appreciate we're getting off piece on the question, but like where, Failbetter's games fall into this schema, because they are extremely rich when it comes to writing, but they're not especially plot heavy.
No, that's a good point.
Like they're very poetic in their language. That's the kind of thing that defines Telltale games.
It's like a texture rather than
kind
of like
it's a feel. It's one of the reasons they're specifically appropriate to the subject matter, I think, because, you know, it's one of, maybe I've quoted this before, but I think about it a lot when I think about game writing. One of Lovecraft's letters to his circle of writers, I think it's a letter to Robert Barlow. He says that he says it in a very Lovecraft way, so it doesn't make any sense, but what he means is the great kind of desirable quality of, like cosmic horror isn't plot, but atmosphere. That really the story is effective if it simply connotates a certain sense of dread or a certain sense of the sublime, but in a bad way, which is basically all cosmic horror is. It's Wordsworth seeing a big hill and going, wow, but that big hill's a huge octopus. That's all of cosmic horror. That feeling, like the atmosphere is, and I think atmosphere is tremendously important to game writing. Like, I think that's often underlooked. I think discounting something as lore is sort of when it's simply exposition. It's like, and then the bad king, Stephen, came along and he made the good swords go in the ground and now we've got to find them. That's lore. Atmosphere is when you say exactly that. But it sounds, but you then think it's cool.
Is it sometimes that, it says that stuff, but it's hard to fetch? Yeah, it's hard to get at that.
It's because it's evocative, right? It's why it makes a bad tutorial text. It's like...
But this is why Dark Souls work.
Oh
no,
yes, we got back there. Specifically banned us from fiction.
I banned us, and I'm censoring myself right now.
No, keep going, because this person, they banned us from fiction in order to keep us from Dark Souls. But Dark Souls is very good at this. So.
It's really good at it. And also, oh god. So I really apologize for what I'm about to say, because it is possibly the worst hot take, but I'm about to draw a through line from Dear Esther to Dark Souls.
Go for it. I thought you were going to go from Mallory to Dark Souls, which is...
No. So Dear Esther randomizes, its kind of quotations over
yes, it does. Yeah.
What you find, and then you piece it together out of order into a kind of...
I know where you're going with this.
Into a kind of material texture that forms the interesting thing about Dear Esther is that when you come to the end of it, there kind of is a story, but really what you've actually experienced is the emotional context as a kind of loose ambient thing that you're in, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like, oh, and then Poirot solved the mystery and now I feel good. It's about like existing in a kind of emotional moment that is created by...
It's poetic.
It's poetic. And Dark Souls randomizes drop rates and...
That was a bit of a jump. Yes, okay.
But drop rates with Dark Souls, like every drop rates are lore in Dark Souls because every item has a description and some of them are useless and some of them are pointless. Some of them are funny. Some of them are jokes and occasionally they're useful and you don't know at all when you're encountering them what is a joke, what is just an ordinary description of an item and what is an important lore point. And only after you've played it, maybe like once through, maybe twice or 3 times, do you piece that together and it becomes this textured world that also, again, the specifics of the plots of who killed who or did what is not important. It's the sheer tragedy of the entire situation that you absorb and and that type of storytelling is not interested in the hero's journey. It's not interested in act structures. It's interested in putting you into an emotional moment that represents the world. And I think that Dear Esther and Dark Souls do that.
I think specifically they also achieve like encouraging kind of rereadings of the same situations, which is something they both do.
And they also leave so much room for interpretation, which is another kind of literary thing.
I'd say like intuited storytelling and also accreted storytelling, where you end up getting a gathering sense of something through re-encountering it a lot of different ways.
And both games leave a lot of space for you to kind of...
Yeah, that breathing room I think is super interesting.
To kind of, because that gives you the room to bring your own experience and your own perspectives into it, and that deepens it as well, I think.
Yes, I mean, I genuinely think that like, critical reading is so literally this is the talk I gave at EGX, was critical reading as game mechanic. Like, that's something I tried to introduce to Hackmud. I think it's underexplored because game storytelling tends to be in the service of mechanics in the form that this is why you need to go and do the thing that the game mechanics are. But I think learning to read critically and interpret language critically can be game-like or can have game-like rewards if you structure it properly. So that's like literally we just did an update for Hackmud that's designed to achieve exactly this. So I guess maybe I'll link to that talk. But like, you know, this is I think a thing. Like games can achieve this through writing and writing can be game-like. It's just...
And I do think it's a thing, it's a form of writing that games deliver that films or other mediums struggle to do in the same way. So some do.
Like, I think, you know, there's so many great films that have ambiguous endings.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like, so I'd say like, you know, or even not films, but like, you know, like the ending of The Sopranos, and I won't spoil it, but like it totally achieved its aims as a bit of storytelling and writing, right? Because it created this ambiguity and this sort of discursive environment around that thing. It doesn't need an answer. I mean, oh God, I feel like we need to move on to another question because this is such a big topic for me. But like, I feel like, I think I've said this in the podcast before, but I feel like there's a sort of a common sense that sort of stories aren't finished unless they're fully answered. That maybe has always been around, but it feels like quite a modern thing. And has a relationship with fandom in certain ways, and has a relationship with the way stories get condemned or elevated based on what they do and don't answer. And I would always sort of defend the right of stories to be ambiguous. And I think games have struggled with that and I think games are also responsible for maybe training a certain audience to expect answers in a particular format. But actually, like, games are often at their best when they're embracing the ambiguity of language and storytelling in your place within a system that surrounds you.
I'd never argue against an ambiguous ending, but I think we talked about atomic storytelling earlier. Like Dark Souls is genuinely atomic storytelling. Like it's genuinely like little like nodes that you have to assemble like a jigsaw puzzle for yourself. And then you bring your own interpretation to that. And I don't think that many mediums can do that as well as games.
No, exactly.
This does not fulfill a lot of the conditions of the question, but I want to give a shout out to one of my favorite bits of writing in a video game that is sort of it's simultaneously exposition and also anti-exposition, which is in BioShock. It was not impossible to build Rapture under the sea. It was impossible to build it anywhere else, which fundamentally does not answer the question that it's trying to answer, but just at the end of it, you're like, oh yeah, cool. That makes it and it's totally it gives you atmosphere. It doesn't give you a narrative logic to how this place was built. It refuses to answer that question and just says, we're not going to answer that. We're just going to remind you how important it is.
It's very effective.
It's really good.
It establishes exactly the world in which this takes place.
It's the propaganda, right? It's the endless propaganda of the project that you're bombarded with.
Partly, but it's also functionally this is a game that takes place in the realm of ideas. Really, more than anything else. It's not suspend your disbelief when it comes to the physical construction of the city, wherever the city takes place, and consider that this takes place in a realm where cities are more like expressions of philosophies, which is kind of true anyway. Right. And it's sort of some slider has been adjusted between, what prompts the development of a city. Is it an idea or is it a set of practical circumstances? And BioShock and its sequel definitely take place in a world where that's heavily weighted towards idea and heavily weighted away from practicality. We don't build a city because, there's a river here. It's good for trade. We build a city because I believe that all men should be free to put a big slug on them and learn lightning powers. That's why we're under the sea. That's...
video games are good.
In conclusion, video
games. We got into that one. That was good.
No, but it was good. But that exact thing, that exact temptation to go let's ground this in the practical, I think is a weakness of, maybe simply video games generally, but it's really nice whenever games break out of that and simply embrace,
ideas, right?
Poetics. Oh God, I've got so many opinions about this. I need to shut the fuck up. But yeah. Also, mythology is allowed to just be mythology sometimes. It doesn't have to be explained.
So, what's the name of the person who asked this question?
I moved on. I preloaded the next question, so give me a second. It was City Slick Sparrow.
So thank you, Mrs. Sparrow, for opening that massive, enormous can of worms for all of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Can of wormholes.
Yeah. Next question comes from David, who writes, Hi all, in episode 247, Tom S. described the bolters in Warhammer 40,000 Gladius.
You better fucking believe I did.
As machine guns.
Oh shit.
One of Tom's complaints about the game was that many of the units were rather samey and that they tended to do chip damage that made fights take forever.
Correct.
As a lapsed 40k player, my ears perked up when I heard bolters being glossed as machine guns. I know that Tom S. is well aware of 40k lore and was just describing the weapon for the benefit of listeners who may not be steeped in Games Workshop madness. After all, not every weapon deserves insect glaive level explanations. Kudos, Chris. You thought this question was dunking on Tom. It's dunking on me secretly.
Double dunk.
But this simple description reminded me that 40k games have often failed to live up to their lore.
Give me 40 games and a wizard.
Oh God, not again. After all, the bolter is less of a machine gun and more of a mini howitzer that fires large bore projectiles that explode inside the target. GW themselves are guilty of failing to live up to their own lore, since a shot from a bolter will take out an unarmored human about 66% of the time in the tabletop game. Okay. My question is this. What games have disappointed you by not living up to their lore? Conversely, what games have displayed a good marriage of lore and mechanics? Bonus question. Include a pun on the word lore in your response. I was unable to come up with one for my question. I hate to see an opportunity for punning go to waste. Regards, David. I'm going to steal a pun for myself here, because I called my talk at EGX Lore and Disorder, which was a pun on lore. And then I realized that was, so actually I had a bit of a moment ruined for me because my clicker didn't work. And so I was supposed to flip onto the slide with the actual name of the talk on, but didn't work on time. So it ended up being extremely labored. If you watch the video, you'll notice this. But the actual title of the talk was Lore. What is it good for? Occasionally, something. There's my pun. And anyway, on with the question. So,
I want to
defend yourself.
Thanks, David, for giving me the benefit of the doubt. Cause I do indeed understand what the bolter is supposed to be. It's a little artillery piece that, giant men carry.
We're talking about the Space Marine standard
just sort of the bog standard.
Because there's also the heavy bolter, right? Which is,
fucks more shit up. I mean,
a rapid fire howitzer.
I mean, yeah. So yeah, every single like bolt that comes out of a bolter is a miniature warhead. Because Space Marines are enormous. They're like 1.5 times the size of a normal human.
That's very big, Tom.
It's enormous.
It's not as big as like a big bear, but it's bigger than a normal man.
It's about the size of an American football player or something like that. And they carry around, like, it's weird. I've been watching American football a lot recently, and they kind of are Space Marines, actually. Like, it's weird. Because they've just got the armor and the kind of, the way they're kind of built. It's weird. Anyway.
They take part in a turn-based game.
and just beat the shit out of each other. Yeah, absolutely. But yes, the bolter is amazing. The bolter is, I completely agree with David that, bolters are, it is David, right? Fuck.
Yes.
That bolters are not represented correctly in most Warhammer games, but I would say that Space Marine does this very well. And I will talk about Space Marine every podcast that I am on, because it does loads of stuff with 40k fiction very well without the budget that it really needed to actually deliver the fantasy.
Yeah.
So getting a hedgehog.
Hedgehog. Sorry. Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic the Hedgehog would be an interesting game.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Shooting an orc in the head with a bolter as a Space Marine captain in Space Marine is exactly what should happen when, is exactly what you would expect to happen based on the fiction. So that nailed it. Everything else fucked it up.
Yeah. Dawn of War does not really sell the impact of those shots, because as an RTS, it kind of has to have them just
miss each other a lot.
Yeah. There just has to be a lot of attrition that is.
Yeah.
Not true to the fiction.
Yeah.
I don't really know if this qualifies, but, I had a moment playing Sins of the Solar Empire, which sort of felt like, it arose from game mechanics, but it felt like fiction. It felt like something you'd write about in a sort of sci-fi short story, where I probably have told the story in the podcast long, long ago, so I apologize if you're a long-time listener. But you can build a sort of like, a weapon of such scale that it has to be built in orbit, and it can fire a projectile at, I think, any range. You can just shoot literally anything in the galaxy, and it can also destroy a planet. Like, it is a devastating endgame weapon. But the speed at which the projectile travels is kind of not remarkable, and it doesn't go through like warp gates or anything. It just fires, just travels across space at sub-light speeds. And most of the other transport you're doing is kind of, you're warping between systems. You're warping between these things. And so I had shot at an enemy planet with one of these systems. Wait, no. It wasn't me. I read this story. Someone else did this, and I read their story. Sorry. I almost took credit for it. It wasn't me doing this. I read someone else's story. And they had fired this cannon at a distant enemy world. And then this was like early on in the game, and then they had expanded their empire, and eventually got to the point where they expanded their empire to the point that they took over the planet that they had originally fired the shot at.
Was it still heading towards
months and months later, yeah, the shot is still heading towards the planet that they've since colonized. They just kind of forgot that was heading that way, and so it ended up destroying their own planet, which just feels like something a sort of sci-fi fiction race would do.
That's very good.
That's extremely
good.
Sins
is a very good game, an underrated game.
Sins is very good. And also, I want to thank Tom for stopping me from going into a massive diatribe about bolters and their respective benefits.
Yeah. It's very good though. And Space Marine by Relic is a very good game, Tom, and you were right to go to bat for it forever.
I just want another one. It's never going to happen, but I'm always going to talk about it.
You don't know, Relic might be working on it right now. Our next question comes from Travis, who writes, "Hello, I keep bees in my backyard and I make mead with their honey."
This is a great start. I'm so on board for whatever comes next.
You're my favourite questioner already.
I have just bottled my nicest batch yet. Would you like some?
Oh my god.
Yes.
Fuck yes.
If Pip is on the pod, do you have any recommendations for adding berries and whatnot to mead? She isn't, and I don't know, I've never known her to make
berries to mead. Is that a thing? I know vodka is good for this, but
I'm gonna say yeah. Throw some blackberries in there.
Yeah.
No, some black currants. Blackberries are not as good.
And that's from Travis, who writes, "P.S. Please try to limit yourself to a modest quantity of bee puns. This is a very straightforward question. The answer is, for maybe the first time in Crate Crawler history, yes.
Wow, yeah.
But
I want to keep my own bees and make mead. That sounds like the best existence that I could have. Damn.
The relationship between honey and mead was only made clear to me when in Skyrim I was assigned to assassinate somebody who was allergic to honey, and one of the ways to do it is to feed them mead.
How do you feed someone mead forcefully?
Well, I never found out, because before I could get to them, I was informed I completed the quest. And then when I arrived there, I found a body, a dead horse, and a bear. And I was like, I like this game.
Fantastic.
Did
I say Skyrim just then?
Yes.
I meant Oblivion.
Okay, good. Still a good game, not as good as Skyrim.
Both good games.
Do we have anything else to add on the subject of please send us mead, other than...
I don't think we've ever provided anyone an avenue to send us anything.
We have.
Have we?
We've had reader provided, listener even provided gin. We've had listener provided whiskey.
Yeah, we had a fancy whiskey at Christmas.
Yeah,
do we have a PO box or?
No, but DM me.
There are ways. Okay.
I can make things happen. Don't worry.
Yeah, DM Chris.
Or just email, and we'll talk about it.
Give us the mead.
Use a dead drop location
for delicious artisanal mead. That's the most Crate and Crowbar drink, perhaps.
No. There was a time in the past when we were thinking about podcast sponsors, and we did genuinely kind of canvas.
Think about beer,
ale.
Yeah, it's true.
People. But I'm glad to be a non-ad supported podcast.
Yeah.
Although I think there would be some sort of bitter irony on us advertising booze midway through.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I do enjoy how people manage to make in podcast adverts kind of fun and make it part of the podcast vibe. But imagine having to do that.
I don't want to. I don't want to
actually kind of do it anyway.
The money would have to be very good.
Thank you, Wix. Our final question comes from Daniel, who writes, a month or two back you mentioned that Americans misunderstand the use or weight of the word wanker in British culture. Can you elaborate?
It's my favourite question.
And that's from Daniel in Iowa.
Very good question.
It's about 512 grams, but I can't convert to imperial.
Yeah, what's an imperial versus a metric wanker? So, I don't know where to start with this.
It's hard to know, I mean...
So I think, in terms of first principles, I think Americans tend to receive the word wanker as primarily a funny British word. Right?
Isn't that how British people see it as well? Exactly.
No, because, so I think, I may well be wrong about this, but I don't think I think Britain has more words for insulting someone based on the frequency and or intensity of their masturbatory habits than America does.
Okay.
I could think of jerk off, for example, as an American insult that references the same thing.
I don't hear that very
However, we have both wanker and tosser. Which is already twice as many.
I've not heard tosser for years.
No, but it's certainly a thing people say.
What about toss pot?
Toss pot as well.
That's different. Toss pot.
Adaptive. Nice.
I don't know. Yeah, I think toss pot is it's the defanged version of tosser, I think. It doesn't it's using pot as an intensifier rather than sir, which is traditionally
the ultimate intensifier.
Yeah, well, yeah,
what about Chundermeister?
That's just someone who throws up a lot, right?
No, it's a thing I just made up. It could just be a British, this is the great thing about British slang. You could just make some shit up.
I think that's the thing. I think this also has maybe a devaluing effect on how Americans receive the word wanker, because so much British slang appears to be totally interchangeable with other British slang.
Yeah, well, quite.
And because it is, that it masks the words that actually have some kind of meaning.
Yeah, so say, I would say tired today, I'm just a massive Chundermeister. That's that's interchangeable with any given sentence.
Exactly.
In the English language.
Well, I feel like our use of wanker is comparable to American use of douche. Would that be fair?
Possibly, yeah.
It's a particular kind of person who you're not really saying they're an idiot. You're not really saying they're evil. It's just they're sort of full of themselves and they're behaving in a way that's really obnoxious.
And the use of the word connotates genuine dislike. It's not if tosser is milder. If you say you're a wanker, you do mean you don't like this person. It's not like, if you say you're a douche, you know, it's like, to call a friend that in a funny way, you have to be really good friends. Like, maybe that's a good way of measuring the severity of an insult word. It's like how good friends you have to be with someone to say it in a way that it's like, we all understand that it's fun.
I've not heard anyone call a wanker for a long time. I think this slang is out of date.
I think
it's done.
I've definitely used the term wanky to describe.
Oh, that's a good one.
I don't want to say it that way because it sounds kind of wanky.
Yeah, so the discussion that...
I think douche is a really good comparison, actually. I think douche is about tonally the right...
Douche and wanky, yeah.
I'm down with that. Douchey, for example.
Yeah, I don't want to say it that way because it sounds a bit douchey.
But it's when you say, John to my story really matters. Like, they're gonna take that.
You really want to make this happen, Tom. But...
Stop trying to make Chunder Meister happen. It's not gonna happen.
This podcast is just basically me trying to make fucking nonsense things happen. It's never gonna work, but it's fine. Gotta throw these things out there. Thank you for the question.
But I think also, like, I think maybe the British usage of it is a little bit closer to its actual meaning. Because I don't think Americans have the word wanking, for example. Right? Americans say jerking off, I guess. Or
maybe
jack off as well.
You know, etc. Right? Like, I don't think I've ever heard an American, refer to the act of masturbating as wanking. But that is literally what it's called in British English.
Yeah.
So
I also feel like I really need to change my language when I go to the US, actually, because swear words just have massively different weight on different continents. Like generally, especially like the C word in America is absolutely like that's one of the worst things you can say, right? And but I'm really used
in Britain
to that.
Just means thank you.
But yeah, it's really common here and it's just not the same thing, right?
But I've also heard that, from Americans and Canadians that, when I swear it sounds cleaner than it does in America or Canadian. Like, it's more acceptable because it might be maybe my particular accent, but it's considered like less dirty.
Huh. I wonder if that's partly because like, American swearing tends to like dwell on the vowel for a long time. Like American accents generally dwell on the vowels. That's like what typifies an American accent.
Like,
exactly. Like you draw it out. You do that. You sound more American just doing that because that's how an American accent works. You just extend the vowel. British English tends to be very clipped in its use of vowels.
You're a big twat. Oh, God.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
Whereas in Britain, we would say, you are a big twat. And like, there's...
What's a twat you are?
Exactly. And,
interesting theory, Chris.
No.
Press on.
And just saying that like, we contain, there's something about I'm just getting, look.
They also say twat rather than twat, right?
Yeah.
Twat,
yeah. Also, I mean, like, and, some AO vowel shift has taken place that, what I'm saying is, towards the beginning of this question section, we risk completely devaluing, poetics as a concept. And I just want to bring it back inch by inch. And if it means explaining that Americans swearing sounds dirtier because they just extend every vowel, then I'm going there. I'm going there and I'm going to live there and pump my flag there.
Jerk off.
I don't mean like. I don't mean that it's necessarily that people like sound like that so much as that
they're not Pokemon.
They're not. If you're a Pokemon, you can only say wanker. That says something about the Pokemon that you are, because typically they can only say their own names.
Yeah.
Oh my God. What was that conversation that we just had? That's interesting.
I think we've adequately explained why the word wanker is more intense in the UK.
Is it?
It is though. It is.
It's really... like a non-word, isn't it? Like,
no.
God's a wanker.
No, it's not. Like, well, because
if you tell your friend like, don't be a wanker, that's acceptable, right?
Yeah. But if you say like, oh, you wanker, you have to be quite good friends for that to be like, aha, ha 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 ha, as opposed to like, oh.
This might be regional.
Funnily enough, that's actually, I feel like it's...
I think, yeah.
For a given level of friendship, it's more acceptable to say, you wanker, than don't be a wanker. Don't be a wanker is like, I seriously believe you actually are being a wanker, whereas just saying you're a like, you wanker is like, friendly. Isn't it?
I don't think
I've been using it wrong.
This might well be regional.
I don't think we're going to untie this knot. Because I do think it's regional, actually. Yeah. Like, grow up in the Midlands.
Then you get to the whole, like, rabbit hole of describing something as wank. Which is quite complicated. Is it? Who knows?
I mean, I'm 3 whiskeys deep, so
Yeah.
I can't unpack this. It's too much.
Well, thank you for that question. Does anyone have anything to add on the topic
I
of
don't
wank?
think so, but please, I'd love to like crowdsource that community on this. Like, what
does wanking mean to you?
Yeah, what weight does the word wank have for you, in your regional capacity? So, yeah, I don't know.
Yes, yeah.
Or just send us questions, it's all good.
Yeah, please. No, please send us questions. 2 questions@creightoncrowbar.com. You could also tweet us. My voice is going. @CreightonCrowbar. Thanks, as ever, to our Patreon backers for inexplicably making this happen. You can find out more about supporting the podcast at patreon.com/CreightonCrowbar. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/CreightonCrowbar. And you may also find us as individuals. I'm on Twitter @CThurston. That's CTHURSTEN. Tom?
I'm at PCG Ludo.
And I, Tom F, am at Pentadact, PENTADACT.
Thanks for listening, everybody.